What's up, Bitcoiners? Sun is up. Bitcoin is running, no problem. We'll take our coffee. And now it's time to mourn. If you're not from America and you woke up this morning, maybe you didn't hear, but everyone in America woke up this morning, and it's one of the saddest, most difficult days we've ever experienced. A nation is torn apart. The stress levels are through the roof. What happened last night? Hold on, guys. Hold on. Some journalists got taken off of Twitter. It happened. It happened. It's worse than January 6th. It's one of the worst things that's ever happened. A nation to wake up to this kind of news in this environment. I mean, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, right? You've got Taylor Lorenz. She's ringing the bell for freedom. Yesterday, she was complaining about other stuff, but today it's all about the journalists that are getting taken off of Twitter. Unreal. It's Aaron Rupar. Aaron Rupar, if you didn't know, he made the critically important clips that showed Trump saying fine people in Charlottesville. I mean, what would we do without that edit? What would we be doing without the famous Charlottesville fine people hoax? What would we do? What about the drinking bleach hoax? Who edited that video? Well, it was Aaron Rupar. Aaron Rupar, who's no longer on Twitter. That's what happened, folks. Last night, Elon Musk flexed his full tyrannical might and vanquished and destroyed journalists. What are we going to do? Even AOC got involved. Even AOC came out and said, Elon, you got to put down the phone. You got to put down the phone, man. Right? She says, you're a public figure, an extremely controversial and powerful one. I get feeling unsafe, because the reason he did it, of course, if you didn't hear, it's because these, as he put in quotes, journalists, these journalists were doxing his private jet location. And because they were doxing the private jet location, he decided to put the normal Twitter terms of service into force. And that was deemed a security risk. So that's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is here mentioning. I get feeling unsafe, but descending into abuse of power and radically banning journalists only increases the intensity around you. Take a beat and lay off the proto-fascism. Maybe try putting down your phone. So Elon, there's this whole thing on the internet that they're flirting. Did anyone ever see that video, by the way, where someone edited AOC and Musk as if they were on a date, and she's like, I'm just a girl, breaking all the rules. And he's like, yeah, So what are people saying about all this, right? Obviously, I'm putting some jokes into it. So here's what happened. He canceled a few journalists, and that's all anyone is talking about right now. So there's going to be hours and hours and hours of this. The details are he canceled them. Everyone erupted. They started disappearing from Twitter one at a time. Aaron Rupar, of course, Elon does the old, let's have a poll right away. So right away, he circumvents all the craziness. So he puts a poll out, right? So he puts the poll out, and the poll is, should they be back on soon? Should they kicked off forever? And it looks like it's going to be a 7-day suspension in the end. So that's what it came out to. I voted put them right back on because the joke was already there. We're all having a good laugh, and it was pretty funny. So it's a Washington Post journalist, a New York Times journalist, a CNN journalist, and Aaron Rupar, who's technically now independent, because I guess the Rupar, I don't know what his thing is with CNN. I'm not positive. But he made the argument. He posted my exact real-time location, basically assassination coordinates. This is one of his tweets. In obvious direct violation of Twitter terms of service. So in order to even make the story funnier, all these journalists threw up one of the Twitter spaces to all complain, and it was Ben Collins and all the people that I mentioned regularly on this show. And what ended up happening was he jumped in, and in the end, they had some of the funniest stuff, right? The Twitter Spaces, as Bowtied Ranger describes it, the Twitter Spaces was an incredible display of soy midwittery, attempting to dodge answering basic questions by challenging definitions of words and whining like college students who aren't satisfied with the grade they received. Cernovich answered to that as well. The media's credibility is such garbage that its only power was to cry to get banned, to get people banned. They are totally unprepared for honest debate and even basic rules following. And that's where I am on this debate, and we're going to get into what's going on. We'll talk quickly about the board, what it means. I saw a few stories at once. So certainly you see the story of the journalists getting banned, and of course all these people raising red flags. Oh, it's the tyrannical move. I think anyone who's been paying attention to these folks know that they had been running afoul of the rules for a long time and are simply not used to it. They're not used to it. So you get a lot of reaction to them just not being prepared for what's happening, right? So the Washington Post ran an article right away. And of course, now it's the, they're going back to their alleged line. So the Washington Post, Musk suspends journalists from Twitter, claims assassination danger, they put in quotes. Company executives suggested without evidence, right? So they say without evidence, that more than a half a dozen reporters endangered Musk and his family by posting their locations. So they're doing all this. Oh, alleged. They allegedly did this. They allegedly threatened him. Of course, this is a threat. And I think he's, especially with the kind of anger that he's kicked up and the kind of hatred that now exists towards him, of course, I think he's within his rights. And this alleged stuff takes a real smooth brain to not understand that his risks are different than others. Now, I know that David Sachs defended the policy, and he said, according to CNN, a threat to safety occurs only when you criticize someone they like, but not when you publish real-time assassination coordinates of someone they don't. And he goes on to talk about how the jets themselves shouldn't have the ability to know where they are at all times. It's a GPS thing, and he makes the point on that. Glenn Greenwald brings up a really great point to this, which is, look at the reactions to what's going on now. There was never any reaction of sympathy, or very little. I'd say Glenn Greenwald was the only one, really, left-wing sympathizers for folks on the right or conservatives or who have disagreeable opinions getting banned. So he predicts, and I think he's going to be correct, that the liberals getting banned now will not have the same experience, that a lot of the right-wing people will also defend them. So it won't be the same story. While they didn't defend an entire era, an entire generation, an entire inter-presidential period between Trump 1 and Trump 2 of bans all the time, or Trump 1 and Biden 1, of people getting banned all the time. And of course, there was never really much protest. So what he says is, I'll bet anything conservative journalists like this will be infinitely more consistent and principled in their objection to censorship of liberal journalists than liberal journalists ever were. Liberals cheer censorship of their enemies, whine when it's their friends. And this is from Rebecca Mansour saying, having been on the receiving end of Keith Olbermann's tweet mobs more than once, because now Keith Olbermann was one of the other ones who got kicked off, by the way, I can't say I'm going to miss him, but I don't like seeing anyone get suspended. So I hope this isn't permanent. So he's just pointing out here that, different people do it. He brought up the old Glenn Greenwald said, whatever happened to private companies have the right to disassociate themselves from anyone they want? Have you ever heard of terms of service? If you don't like how Twitter does content, start your own social media site. Remember all those arguments? So he brought them all up at the right time, I think. And then he also said, for slow liberals struggling to understand the point, I already devoted a full show to critiquing Musk's inconsistent free speech practices. What I won't take are liberals who spent years defending censorship now whining because their friends are banned. And I think he got it right on with that, right? I think that's one of the best takes I saw anyway. So when he was in the spaces, right, just arguments and all this, and what does this mean, and definitions, and of course, they just couldn't handle it when he came in and just said the simple thing: the same doxing rules apply to you, journalists, as every other journalist. It's the same rules. I'm just applying the rules, right? And the problem with that was they're not used to not being special, right? They went for so long, some of these folks working for corporate media. I won't even say it's liberal media in a sense, right? It's corporate media, because the same thing at Fox, you don't see Fox folks getting taken down. So it's a corporate media thing. And you've got Preston Byrne, who says, the thing about the left-leaning reporter purge for posting about the Jets is that they're gonna get a small taste of what it's like to be unpersoned from their main distribution channel. Reporters don't expect that. It ain't pretty. They will complain. And he goes on to say, Twitter is where they build their personal brands. CNN is the corporate brand. Their personal brands are about to be limited to a 200K registered account on Mastodon. And really, that's what it comes down to. They're not used to getting treated this way. They're not used to the not special treatment. And they're not used to people figuring out how to get around this, right? They're not used to people figuring out how to get around the system that they put in. They put in a system that had all kinds of parts that were dependent on the special privileges corporate media got. We've talked a lot about sources on this show recently, about how the CIA and different national security apparatus launder information through corporate media. A really important story, more and more obvious now that the Twitter files are out. And even Prison Planet, Paul Joseph Watson did a bit of comparing about this purge, right, to the time they actually spent on the Twitter files. So here's Paul Joseph Watson. The major left-leaning U.S. news networks spent 14 minutes between them. That's NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC combined spent 14 minutes on the Twitter files. I spent more on this one show. We spent more together here, right? We spent more time than all the mainstream media combined on the Twitter files. Combined. And what did the Twitter files show? They showed narrative poisoning on the part of Twitter employees, folks who thought they really were defending the country against Hitler. They believed it. They believed they were defending the country against Hitler. Just like the January 6th protesters believed they were defending the country against a stolen election, right? It's the same thing. They were both wrong, probably. They were both wrong in the sense that they had been pushed there, moved there, motivated there, because the system simply couldn't have an honest debate about what was going on, incapable of doing it. So what you see now is a complete ignoring of the Twitter files, and he brings it up. There's more outrage and media coverage of some journalists getting banned for doxing than there are about any of the Twitter files, which were revelatory in showing national security manipulation of communications channels. Watching the cathedral work, how the sausage was made, it's more clear than ever now. And anyone who doubts that the CIA and FBI and different national security apparatuses have taken over the United States of America just need to spend some time with the Twitter files. They need to see the manipulation of what are supposed to be trusted entities. I mean, we know we're Bitcoiners, so we're not stupid and sit around thinking that we should be able to trust the CIA. But I read or I described Moby's experience yesterday. You know, the DJ Moby, remember? And I described how Moby brags on podcasts about how, oh, he did some concerts in DC and some national security people wanted to spend time with him because he's a big DJ, right? Not knowing that he was a witless rube, and they were just trying to use his Twitter handle to get stuff out about Trump-Russia collusion. And he described it very cleanly about what happens. They look for people, they get them to push information, and it goes out. And we saw that regularly in the last week or so with the Twitter files releases. But here, this story, way more attention. And I'm sure you're going to see mainstream media run content on this all day long. Now, I think with the poll, there's no need to parse over the is it right or is it wrong or whatever. It's funny. That's the first thing you got to know. It's funny. It's funny, and it does show how much things are changing, and it shows how much people are working to get around the normal media structure. Now, I'll mention, we all had a good laugh. I saw yesterday that I was laughing at Trump when he came out, if anyone didn't see it. But this is the same story. I'm going to tie them together. Trump came out yesterday with this ridiculous NFT thing, right? I'd never seen anything so stupid in my life when he came up with it. And I thought, right when I saw it, I said, this is so dumb that it might ruin his legacy forever. Right? That was my first impression. I saw it and I said, oh my God, Trump has lost his skills. He's lost his ability. Maybe he never had it. It's so bad. It was so bad when I saw this NFT collection, because he came out with a super Trump NFT collection. He even had a announcement the day before saying something super is coming, super announcement, right? All kinds of people were wondering what it is. Oh my God, goodness, what is it going to be? What is it going to be? Oh my goodness, what's Trump's big plan, right? And so I saw it and I said, this was it? He's not even serious about running for president this time. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But what did he do an hour later? Did anyone see? Did anyone notice what he did 1 hour later? 1 hour later. 1 hour later, he released his free speech digital Bill of Rights plan. I didn't see this coming. And we're not on the Trump train at all. I'm just showing you that clever people are working on how to get around what he's experiencing, because what he was experiencing was people ignoring him, right? People ignored him, and he's not used to that, because his whole ability to persuade was to gather attention for some crazy thing and then shoot it into something else. And their tactic of ignoring him is working. And we've discussed here how Andrew Tate, for example, pioneered and innovated a way to get around being totally and completely canceled. He went on every podcast. They all created content around him, and then he was off to the races. Trump tried something else. I don't think it worked, but now that I see everything in place, it might have. The NFT thing, make money or whatever, it doesn't matter. He got attention because they roasted him. The roasting was purposeful. I think the roasting, doing the dumb thing, not that the NFTs weren't an idea, whatever, they'll get some revenue out of it, $99, this and that. Not the point. Not the point at all. He did the thing and they actually picked up on it. They gave him a media cycle. But it kind of scrambled everyone's brains, because the minute they give him the media cycle, what does he put out right after? This digital privacy bill. What's in it? This is what it is. A ban on federal agents colluding to censor American citizens. A ban on taxpayer dollars being used to label speech as mis or disinformation. Fire every federal bureaucrat who is engaged in domestic censorship. Immediately send preservation letters to Biden administration and big tech giants to keep all the emails on record. Basically looking for the Twitter files in every social media site. Order the DOJ to investigate all parties involved in online censorship regime and prosecute any and all crimes identified. Revise Section 230 to drastically curtail big platforms' power to restrict lawful speech. Stop federal funding for all nonprofits and academic programs engaged in censorship. Suspend federal dollars to any university that has engaged in censorship support activities. Enact criminal penalties for federal bureaucrats who partner with private entities to violate your constitutional rights. Impose a 7-year cooling off period before former Intel and national security officials can work at big tech platforms. And then finally, pass it all in a digital Bill of Rights. So let me just see, I get some comments here. The dystopia is accelerating. If you don't feel the apocalypse, let you know. Yeah, there you go. Trump NFTs really are that bad. They are, Dex, but now I think I figured out what he was doing. What happened? Trump went with any news as good news. Once they start talking about him, he gets his real message debated in public. Exactly, bud. And what I saw yesterday was him doing the NFT thing. And of course, it did kick off a Trump media cycle, because that's what he can't. If he would have just gone with the Bill of Rights, what would have happened? Nothing. Zero. So he did the NFT thing. He gets the media cycle, and then he gets people who go, oh, the minute you start saying that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, the NFTs, true, right? True, it is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe he did it, right? So stupid, ugly, everything. He had the laser eyes, yeah. But immediately after, he releases the Bill of Rights, this digital Bill of Rights. He found a way to get some. Now it failed, so I'm not saying it worked at all. This was an innovation on his part. This was him attempting to get around the blockade. Right? He's not going to buy TikTok. Sorry, he's not going to buy. He's not going to buy Twitter. So he's got to think of other ways. And I still think if he did the Andrew Tate thing, he'd be fine. If he went and did podcast, if he did all black podcasts, I've heard that suggested before. Imagine how effective that would be. But he's not doing any of that stuff. I still think part of him is unserious or something. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just not behind the candidacy at all. But I'll admit that when I saw the Bill of Rights, that was the first person who put anything on paper that seemed relevant to what's going on in the world. Wouldn't you like to see all of this Twitter file spread across platforms? I had a video that I had put up, the Mark Andreessen show we did. Twitter, YouTube counts go down. I'm not claiming anything, but they just lopped off a whole bunch of views overnight one day, just gone. Right? I don't know. Nothing being claimed, whatever. Probably normal. Probably they found out some bots or whatever. Right? Obviously, like 99.9%. But all the stuff we saw at Twitter is being replicated in all the social media platforms. This is for sure. YouTube. How many times we've seen Bitcoin channels totally wiped out of YouTube. YouTube is not safe ground really for YouTube content, for Bitcoin content. I'm doing it now, but I've got it backed up other places and all of that stuff. It's not a safe place to do content in the sense that you could lose the whole library. You can lose the whole collection of content that you create on that channel for violations. Now, luckily, I'm clean and I'm able to say things that maybe would get some people banned, but I put them in enough context that I guess the algorithms haven't given me any hard time yet. But it's happening out there. It's a real thing. So Trump doing this innovation. He should just do the Andrew Tate move, because Andrew Tate did show how to beat the permaban on all platforms and how to get around it. And that is the blueprint. And if Trump was serious about getting in the news, he would have just gone on Joe Rogan and talked about this. But he did the NFT thing. I think in the sense that it confirmed he's not as stupid as I was thinking he had become, or out of the game as I thought he'd become. It looks like he's still going to be a player. Which is good, right? You want Trump at his best involving himself in these debates, because he has no capacity for self-censorship and will just say what he means at any time, which is exactly what we need. I always thought his contrast with Obama on that specific point was really important. Obama, for what he was the most well-spoken but weighted, right? Very academically weighted language, focus group stuff, and how to say it perfectly in order to trigger the response you want, and lots of people involved in crafting his message. He didn't invent that method. That was what he had inherited from the way the job of US president had been practiced for 50 or 60 years. You had speechwriters, you had these folks. He just used what was around and produced the best result that system has ever come up with. Trump, on the other hand, was a totally different animal. Remember, when people were criticizing Trump in his first campaign about being, he's a fascist or whatever, remember, he gave 10,000, on average, 10,000 unscripted, unsolicited words a day to mainstream media. 10,000. Just blah, 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 blah. And that was at a time when Hillary Clinton hadn't given a single press conference. He was giving 10,000 words a day to the media to work with. And they came up with the same story every day, but this was the greatest exercise in transparency that we had seen in a presidential campaign in a long, long time. Just reading some, Bitcoin Graffiti says, a trickster move. That's exactly it. Yeah. That's exactly it. He opened up a pore with that NFT decoy. Yeah, because what's a corollary to an NFT conversation? Oh, uncensorable, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that those are the words you start talking about. And when he goes into the freedom of speech thing right away, and what were his options really to even put out cards and all that stuff? He couldn't just work with a normal service provider. He kind of, if he wants to issue something, he kind of has to use this kind of stuff now, right? I don't think he has full access to the same commercial platforms that other people do. Like, I don't think Topps baseball cards is going to make a card collection with Donald Trump. Stupid like a fox, Bud says, yeah, exactly. Trump is like a hacker. He hacks the program. Yeah, again, my initial impression was this is the dumbest thing I've seen in my life. Like, it was so bad. And I was shocked that he had produced something so stupid. But that's not what's going on here. So he did that. But what it reminds me of is, we've got these workarounds now. We've got these workarounds, and they're starting to proliferate. And it's almost the only way to protect yourself from these, the people who would frame things in a way that would confuse you and mislead you, just like with this Elon Musk debate, right? The fake debate around these journalists is, oh, it's totalitarianism, it's Elon Musk kicking off the journalists he doesn't like who criticize him. That's the fake debate. There's room to be critical of Elon Musk, absolutely. But there has been a policy in place for a long time, and one group is not used to having the policy apply to them. And watching them deal with it now underlines the shifting ground in American psyops, in American projection, in American psychological warfare. Because when we're dealing with this stuff, it is all psychological warfare. And you can even see how insidious it is. Now, there's this bipartisan bill I mentioned to ban TikTok, right? So this bipartisan bill out there to bipartisan bill to ban TikTok. Now, Popular Science comes with the EFF, so that's the, I don't remember what they're called again. I don't remember what the EFF stands for again. Oh yeah, Electronic Frontier Foundation. So this is, from the Director General of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and saying on Popular Science why bills to totally ban TikTok in the US might do more harm than good. So they say it might do more harm than good, right? Well, again, they just underline the information security debate. Oh, they're going to have to use others, and then that data will get hacked. So again, they're all stuck on the information security debate. TikTok has nothing to do with information security. Zero. That's not the question. The question is brainwashing. The platform itself can totally hijack your brain. And anyone involved in a national security apparatus, any of those things, understands this. There's no way they don't. This is their field. Their field is persuading people, influencing them through the use of media. That's the entire job. The James Bond thing with the gun and all that, that doesn't happen. That's not real. The real thing is psyops, manipulating the media, using narratives to tell your story, and having those permeate and percolate, whether they're true or not. As long as they're near true stories or not far from the truth, the framing can actually take over. And so EFF totally losing it. And when you think of the potential for how this is all going to change, just look at what's going on right now in Arizona again, right? The Arizona elections. We bring those up all the time here, the Arizona elections. Arizona elections, the Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, running the election, as that's her job when you're the Secretary of State, but also running for governor, right? So she's also running for governor, wins. Now, it took about a month to get the results. So the election she ran took a month to get the results. And the findings don't look anything like the 2020 presidential election, because the 2020 presidential election has to deal with all of the states. There's so much confusion, who knows? And no one was able to put a comprehensive case together. So courts never actually looked at what happened in the 2020 election. You know that, right? The courts never looked at what happened. They just said they don't have jurisdiction, and even if they looked at whatever file, it wouldn't be enough to overturn the election. So that's all they ever did. All they ever did was say, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that. They never actually looked in the details, because a court can't audit a machine, right? They're not, courts don't have the capacity to audit software, in case that wasn't known, right? They don't have the capacity to audit computer networking capacity and holes. They don't know about those things. It's not the right place. So whenever you hear the courts said there was no election interference in 2020, no, they didn't. They said they don't have jurisdiction. They never looked at anything. They can't. They're not capable. But now, because we're dealing with one state, the rules are a little different and the scale is a little different. So they actually were able to make a real case. So they brought it forward, and the judge, this was all in a Zoom call. You can see it. It's amazing. It's amazing. You've got Carrie Lake there, and you've got Katie Hobbs, who's using a government lawyer from the Department of State. All of these people, I imagine, looking at their offices for when they move into the governor's mansion and all that stuff already. So the lawyer, the chief counsel to the Secretary of State, who's looking at election integrity and showed up to the court hearing, just said, "Oh, dismiss it. Like, we're not even here. We don't have time. We're already going to a thing, and just this is the same as 2020. Just dismiss this stuff. Like, it doesn't matter, right?" And you see, Carrie Lake there, calm and patient on the call. The judge listens. The judge listens. The judge listens. And then he asks a few more questions. Because he says, "We don't even want a day to look at the evidence. There's nothing there. Just we want dismissal now." And then other people say, Carrie Lake's lawyer says, no, we have a lot of evidence. We can't have dismissal now. We need at least 3 days. The other guy says, come on, like it's so stupid. Judge, you don't even have to give us 1 day. You don't even have to give us 1 day. Like, I mean, 1 day and a little bit, but you're not going to need it, right? So the judge is sitting there listening to all this. And then when everything is over, he goes, "Well, I learned a lot from this conversation." I'm paraphrasing. He says, "But I wanted to see you," and he's pointing to the lawyer now for Katie Hobbs, "and I wanted to see if you would move into the field of advocacy and not just a lawyer for what's going on." And you move well beyond into the field of advocacy, right? So he's calling him out for being political. And he goes, "We will be taking a look at this." And he gave 2 days just to look at the evidence, right? So this is not the trial or anything like that. But right away, this attitude of these government lawyers mimics exactly what we've seen from mainstream media until now. The same reaction that these lawyers had, because you should see them. They're like, no, they haven't even mounted a case. They thought they were just going to walk over this judge and it would be done. And Carrie Lake would have to go cry, right? She'd have to go somewhere and cry, and it would be over for her. Well, she's going to get her day in court now, and she's going to get to present this evidence in a way that will make sense to a court, because they've already done the forensic analysis on the machines. They've already looked into the hacking and the holes in the system. And that situation now is going to look a lot different, a lot different. And so all of this combined, what it reminds me of is how Elon Musk, he survived in his own way. He, a billionaire, so he could buy a media company. Trump surviving in his own way, finding a way to get around the blackout, finding a way to get his information out there, using a digital rights bill tacked on to a completely insane idea of NFTs. Carrie Lake keeping her powder dry, going to the courts, finding a new way to frame the issue. And what it reminds me of is the sort of small-scale defense that Bitcoiners already adapted, right? Bitcoiners developed a type of defense mechanism against psyops and against persuasion and against the manipulation of fiat. And it looks a little bit like this. Bitcoiners used, first of all, the ego death, right? The ego death was a big part of it. We don't care if you laugh at us. It's fine, right? The ego death is a major part. So did Trump care that anyone laughed at him? Nope. Did Elon Musk care that anyone laughed at him? Nope. Did Carrie Lake care that people were laughing at her? Nope. Right? Did Bitcoiners, did we ever care when it was worth nothing and it crashed and they said it was dead? No, we didn't. We laugh at that stuff, right? So right away, the ego death, the humility that comes with it, these are the things you need to protect yourself against psychological persuasion, and the things you need to survive as we go through World War III. Those are two of the most important things. I've always thought Trump had the capacity for ego death. No one can go through what he goes through in life. That kind of insulting, if they had to really go. The ego is a show, right? He's got a caricature that he puts on stage, and it's a show, and it's funny, and ha ha ha, and only Rosie O'Donnell, and it's all, you know, humor, right? I've always thought, as humor died, he became his whole. If you remember the stand-up routines that he would do during the rallies, right? If any of you ever saw those, hilarious, hilarious, like better than any late night talk show, right? But really, the two other things. So the time horizon, right? So first of all, you've got the ego part, humility, ego. That will help protect you from these things. That's what we've seen in these cases. That's what the journalists aren't going to be able to deal with. That's why they're getting caught in the wrong stories now. Oh, tyrannical Elon, right? They're lost because there's no humility whatsoever. The fact that they're not special anymore is why this has become the big calamity that everyone's waking up to in America today. Oh my goodness, we've suppressed journalists. What are we going to do, right? But here's the most important part, right? So the ego, really important. Time horizon, time preference, how long we're in this game. Carrie Lake, you know, definitely eschewing instant gratification now. She's in this for change. Elon Musk, clearly, the things he's building taking a long time, rockets and all that stuff. But the most important, we also use memes to counter the psyops. Yeah, memes, big part of it. That's a coded language that we've developed that puts information much more clearly and condensed. So the memes are a huge part of it for sure. But the memes fit in, to me, the biggest field we're playing on is defining the game we're playing, right? Defining the game we're playing. And that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference, right? Is Elon Musk playing the game of, I'm going to be a tech billionaire and everyone's going to think, wow, I'm a great tech billionaire. I'm a great tech billionaire leader. No. The game is, let's have conversations. Let's try to make some rules around them, and we'll do our best to solve issues. And the money, when everyone does this thing, oh, Elon, how is he going to make money? I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't think he cares. I mean, how many billions, right? This is about the future of the world. So he's defined the game, I think, in a way that the stakes are a healthy society or not. It's not the game that the mainstream media plays, which is they listen to us or not. Right? It's a different game. It's a different game. And defining the game you're playing ends up making all the rules. Look at Trump. What game is Trump playing, right? Is he playing the grift, as I fell for yesterday? Is he trying to make some money on his followers? It's an easy thing to believe, right? It is an easy thing to believe because he didn't pardon January 6 people, and he's able to get campaign donations because they're in jail. There's a whole story out there, right? But what we saw yesterday is the game he's playing is redefining freedom of speech. Now, he should have done this in his first term. Everything in this digital Bill of Rights was said to him, expressed to him clearly in his first term. So does he deserve another shot? Well, why the hell didn't he do this first? You know how much shit he got from the people who helped him win, like the Mike Cernoviches and these others, when he went with the Republican crowd, the Paul Ryans, in the first year after he was elected, thinking typical Republicans would forgive him for destroying everything they'd ever created by wiping out the Bushes, wiping out all of those candidates from that old GOP. Of course not, right? He was never going to be forgiven, and everyone was right. He should have done all this stuff. Trump won. We would never have had Elon Musk buying Twitter had Trump done the job when he had the chance. But that's what Bitcoiners have done very correctly, defining the game we're playing. The game we're playing is not making money. It's not how do we upend Wall Street. It's none of those things. We want to change the entire financial system in the world. That's the game we're playing. That's it. There's only one game in town. It's one game. A bunch of other stuff can happen, but we are going to change the financial system. And because we define the game we're playing so accurately, just like Elon defines the game he's playing, just like Trump defines the game he's playing, just like Carrie Lake is defining the game she's playing, Bitcoiners for a long time haven't been playing around here. We're not trying to make, some uncensorable money just for the sake of making uncensorable money. Nope. The point is to create something so powerful that it can resist all the forces around and win and replace money. So the point of what we're doing is we've got this game plan. We understand the field we're on. We understand the stakes at play. We know the game we're playing. Do the central banks know the game they're playing? I don't know. I think they look at CPI. I think they say, oh, we got to make sure that more people have access to affordable interest rates and condos. They're not playing the same game as us. And because we're playing, I think, the right game, we're going to win, and soon, because their thing, they're not playing for the future. They're not playing to make a better world. They're not playing for any of those things. They're playing for 2% inflation because someone told them so. And until they get there, they don't know what to do, what's better, right? They're just at a loss. We saw it with the interest rate raise the other day. When is it 2% again? Well, even if it gets to 2% again, they're going to have to circle back and go to energy policy, because the minute it gets to 2%, they're going to lower the rates again, and we're going to have the inflation situation come back. So the game we're playing is just totally different, right? All right, I wondered the other day, this whole fear of the flood, climate change is just an inflation control tool. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Make people use less energy. Yeah, you know who uses less energy? Slaves. Slaves don't use much energy, right? They're not very energy intensive. We need to clip the last part about Bitcoiners knowing the game. Sure, CK. I wondered, it's just make people use that. That's it. But the real flood is fiat. Yeah, amen. All right, team. Peace. I got a call at 8:45 today, so I want to be on time. All right, everyone. See you at noon for news and notes on Bitcoin Magazine Live.